A night of wealth, laughter and sparkling lights, shattered by a single gunshot. But in the chaos, one woman stepped forward. A maid no one noticed before. And what she did next left the world speechless. The Davenport estate sparkled that night, as if the stars themselves had come down to rest upon its crystal chandeliers. Golden lights kissed the marble floors, violins played soft melodies, and the fragrance of expensive wine floated in the air. Leonard Davenport, a silver-haired millionaire dressed in a snow-white suit, stood at the heart of it all, one hand around his glass of champagne, the other resting gently on the shoulder of his wife Clarissa. Their 3 young children giggled nearby, running between the legs of suited men and glittering gowns. It was a night meant for celebration, for showing the world how high the Davenports stood. And then bang! A single, deafening gunshot cut through the music like a blade. The chandelier quivered. Glasses slipped from trembling fingers. Screams burst forth like an echoing wave. On the ground. Everyone down! A masked man bellowed, his voice harsh, his pistol swinging wildly. Guests in polished shoes scrambled to the marble floor. Women in jewels clutched their necks. Men shielded their partners with shaking arms. Clarissa pulled her children to her chest, whispering desperate prayers. Another masked figure strode in behind the first, voice cold and commanding. Jewelry, phones, bags, now! Leonard raised his hands, his heart hammering in his chest. He could feel the cold steel of fear running down his spine. His art, his gold, his vault, none of it meant a thing now. Not when a gun barrel was pressed so close he could feel its breath on his forehead. "We'll take it all," the leader snarled. "Keep talking and you'll be the first to bleed." The grand hall was drenched in terror. Grown men whimpered. Children sobbed. The chandeliers swayed as if even they were afraid. But in that sea of panic, there was one figure who stood strangely still. At the far end of the hall, near the doorway to the kitchen, a young woman stepped forward. Her dark skin glistened faintly under the golden lights, her hair tied back beneath a simple scarf. She wore a plain gray apron, still dusted with flour from the bread she had been baking moments before. Her name was Naomi Clark, the maid Leonard had hired only 2 months ago. While everyone else crumbled, Naomi did not move with fear. Her hands rose slowly, yes, but her eyes, they did not tremble. "You!" one robber barked, aiming his gun at her. "On the floor. Now!" Naomi tilted her head slightly. "The children are behind me," she said calmly, her voice cutting through the chaos like a warm blade of iron. "You're scaring them more than you're scaring me." Gasps rippled across the room. Who talks like that to a man with a gun? The robber's finger twitched. "What did you just say?" "You heard me," Naomi said again, her tone steady, like someone used to standing in storms. "Point your gun lower. Shouting doesn't make you strong. It makes you sloppy." The leader stormed toward her now, his chest heaving beneath his black mask. "You trying to be a hero, Maid?" "I'm trying to keep these kids alive," Naomi replied, unwavering. Leonard stared, his mouth dry, his mind racing. "Who is she?" Around them, the robbery continued. Guests shaking as they filled sacks with necklaces, watches, wallets. Clarissa clutched her children tighter, whispering, "Please, God, please." And yet Naomi stood, speaking words that felt heavier than the guns pointed at them. "You came here for money, not bodies," she said clearly. "Start firing and you won't leave this house. Police don't forget killers. They hunt them." "Shut your mouth," the leader snapped, pressing the gun to her forehead. For a heartbeat, no one dared to breathe. Naomi didn't blink. "You don't want to pull that trigger." The millionaire's heart pounded so hard he thought it would burst. He wanted to scream, to beg them to leave her alone, but even the robbers seemed caught by the invisible rope in her voice. Seconds crawled. "Boss," one of the masked men muttered from the corner. "Cops will be here any minute." "She's wasting our time," another barked. Naomi tilted her head, just slightly. "He's right. You're wasting time arguing with me. Take what you came for and go." The leader's jaw tightened. He turned to his men. "Tie them up. All of them." Rough hands grabbed Leonard by his collar, forcing him to his knees. A masked man stepped toward the children, his shadow swallowing their small figures. And that was when Naomi's voice struck like lightning. "Stop!" The word wasn't loud, but it cracked through the hall like a whip. The chandeliers swayed in eerie silence. "You tie the adults fine," she said, stepping forward slowly. "But you do not lay a hand on the children." The leader's head turned, mask glinting in the dim light. "Or what?" Naomi's gaze never wavered. "Or you'll regret it." For the first time that night, the predators paused, and the hunted began to hope. The air grew heavy. The night was only beginning. The hall stood still, as if the very walls were holding their breath. The masked men hesitated, guns trembling, hearts pounding. Naomi's voice lingered like an echo that refused to fade. The leader narrowed his eyes beneath his mask, stepping closer. His breath smelled of cigarettes and rage. "You've got some nerve, Maid," he hissed, grabbing her arm. "You think because you talk soft, I won't pull this trigger?" Naomi didn't flinch. "You think because you shout loud, you're in control?" Her voice was low, steady, the kind of calm that makes men rethink their violence. Leonard's hands were still bound, his knees digging into the cold marble floor. He wanted to speak, to plead with them to leave her alone, but something held his tongue. It was as if the room itself was watching a battle of wills, one woman against 3 armed men. "Boss, enough!" One of the robbers growled from behind. "Tie her up too. We're wasting time." But Naomi's eyes stayed locked on the leader. "He's right," she said softly. "Every second you spend here arguing, the police get closer. You came for money, not blood. Leave while you still can." The leader's jaw tightened. His hand twitched on the gun. The children whimpered, clutching their mother's dress. Clarissa's whispered prayers turned to sobs. And then it happened. The leader yanked Naomi's arm, a flash of anger sparking in his movements. But in that single instant, her body moved like a shadow trained for moments like this. Her elbow slammed into his wrist. Crack! The gun clattered to the floor, sliding across the marble. Before the other men could react, Naomi twisted his arm behind his back, slammed her knee into his leg, and forced him down onto the tiles with a grunt of pain. The hall erupted in gasps. "Get her!" one robber shouted, raising his weapon. But Naomi was already in motion. She ducked beneath the swing of a pistol, her hand catching the gunman's wrist before he could fire. A sharp twist, and his weapon went flying. The second robber lunged at her, but Naomi turned, her foot sweeping across the floor like a blade. He stumbled, and her palm met his jaw with a crack. He fell hard, his mask half slipping off his face. The guests watched, mouths open, as the maid they barely noticed every day became a storm. Leonard's heart raced. "She's trained. She's a fighter," he thought. "Who is this woman?" The last robber hesitated, his mask damp with sweat. His gun shook in his hand as Naomi pointed her weapon, now in her grip, straight at his chest. "Drop it," she ordered. The man froze. For a moment, he looked like a child who'd been caught doing something terribly wrong. "I said drop it." Her voice cracked like a command he had no power to resist. The gun hit the floor. Silence. A deep, shivering silence. The predators were now the prey. 3 masked men disarmed, their leader groaning on the ground. His arm twisted, his pride shattered. Naomi stood above them, breathing hard but steady, her hands as sure as steel. Leonard whispered, his voice almost trembling. Who are you?" She didn't answer. Not yet. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder by the second. The robbers shifted nervously, their eyes darting toward the grand doors. Naomi pressed the barrel of the gun gently against the leader's shoulder. "On your knees. Hands behind your heads. Now." For the first time that night they obeyed. Clarissa sobbed in relief, clutching her children close. Guests began whispering to one another, some crying quietly, some still frozen in disbelief. The once lavish party had turned into a battlefield, and their savior was the woman they barely noticed serving tea hours earlier. Naomi didn't let go of the weapon, nor did she lower her guard. Her eyes moved constantly. Doorways, windows, corners. She was a soldier again, not a maid. When the heavy doors finally burst open, armed officers stormed inside. They stopped mid-stride, staring at the scene. 3 robbers on the floor, hands bound with their own belts and ties, guests trembling but alive, and one maid standing calm at the center of it all. "Who restrained them?" the police chief demanded. Leonard, still catching his breath, pointed. She did." Gasps rippled through the hall. "Name?" the officer asked, stepping closer. Naomi lowered the weapon slowly, exhaling for the first time in what felt like hours. "Naomi Clark," she said simply. The leader spat blood on the floor. "She's no maid," he growled. "She's a damn soldier." And maybe he was right. The flashing blue and red lights painted the marble walls of the Davenport estate, turning its golden glow into a scene of aftermath. Guests were helped to their feet one by one, some clutching their pearls, some still trembling with disbelief. Children sniffled quietly as their mother held them tight, kissing their foreheads over and over as if to reassure herself they were truly safe. Leonard Davenport sat heavily on a chair, his white suit now wrinkled and damp with sweat. His heart still pounded from the chaos. But his eyes, they were fixed on one figure. Naomi Clark. She stood near the grand staircase, her apron still tied, a faint red mark on her forehead where the robber's gun had pressed minutes ago. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't crying. She was silent, calm, almost as though this night had been just another duty. Leonard rose slowly, his legs unsteady, and approached her. "Naomi," his voice cracked as he spoke her name. "Who are you?" She met his gaze, her dark eyes steady, unwavering. "I told you, sir. I'm your maid." "That's not what I meant," he said softly. "I mean, what are you really?" Naomi glanced down at her flour-dusted apron, then back at him. For a moment, her expression softened, a glimpse of the weight she carried behind that calm face. "Once," she said, "I served in the military. Special operations. I've seen rooms like this before. Except they didn't end this way." Leonard blinked, trying to take it in. "And now you clean my floors." Naomi nodded slightly. "After I left, I wanted peace. Something quiet. Something where the only battles I fought were with dust and laundry." The children peered from behind their mother's dress. The youngest, a boy with wide eyes, tugged at Naomi's sleeve. "You weren't scared, were you?" he whispered. Naomi knelt to his height, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "Oh, I was scared," she said gently. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you don't let fear win." The boy nodded slowly, gripping her hand a little tighter. Leonard's voice was heavy, almost ashamed. "You saved my family. And I just saw you as someone who served drinks." Naomi offered a faint smile. "Most people only see what they expect, sir." The police led the robbers away, their heads hanging, their masks removed. The leader cast one last glare toward Naomi, but it held no more power. She had stripped him of that. As the hall began to empty and the last guests were escorted out, Leonard remained standing in the center, staring at the woman who had turned the night of his greatest fear into a story of survival. "What do I owe you?" he asked quietly. Naomi shook her head. "You don't owe me anything." "Then at least let me give you something," Leonard pressed. "A promotion. Better life. Something more fitting than the title of maid." Naomi looked around, at the shattered glasses, the scattered jewels, the frightened but living faces of the children. "I didn't do this for money, Mr. Davenport," she said. "I did it because someone had to." He swallowed hard, realizing the truth in her words. That night, the story spread across the city. How a quiet maid named Naomi Clark had stared down 3 armed robbers, saved a millionaire's family, and reminded everyone that true strength doesn't always come dressed in wealth or power. Sometimes it wears an apron dusted with flour. As the last police car pulled away and the night turned calm once more, Naomi picked up a fallen serving tray, set it gently on the table and sighed. "Tomorrow," she murmured to herself, "I'll probably still make breakfast." Leonard watched her go, humbled in a way he hadn't felt in years. And that, dear listeners, is the story of the night when a housemaid became a hero. Sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who carry the kind of courage the world desperately needs. If you were moved by Naomi's bravery, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded. Real heroes don't always wear capes. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. We love hearing your stories too. Until next time, stay kind, stay brave, and keep believing in the quiet heroes around you. What would you do in that moment? Hide or rise? Tell us in the comments. And if you believe courage comes from the heart, hit like, subscribe, and join us for more real-life stories that will move you.